Now that the basic story elements are in place, we'll refine our edit by adding some cutaways, transitions, titles, and a music track. To follow along, open the Nelson Teaser 1 project we began in the previous lesson. The name of the open project appears at the top of the viewer. If you have a different project open, press Shift-1 to open the project manager, then double-click the thumbnail. Let's pick up where we left off in the last lesson. You'll recall we created a timeline called In Plain Sight, then added some interviews, inserted some B-roll of the ghost town, and even performed a multicam edit using the sync bin. Play over the last edit where our subject is talking about a major discovery in the desert. To check out the area, and in 1979 there was a major storm that revealed one of the planes. Cutaways are often used to add more visual interest to the story by cutting away to a related shot. Often they're used to hide problems with a lack of camera coverage, but for this story, we're seeing a bit too much of the interview subject. Use the up or down arrow key to move the playhead to the end of the B camera clip. Press I to mark an endpoint. Press the spacebar, listening for him to say, "That revealed one of the planes." Then pause playback and press O to mark an out point. That revealed one of the planes. Open the B-roll bin, then double-click the Plane 01 clip to load it into the viewer. Scrub to the frame just before he extends the antenna of his radio transmitter, and press I to mark an endpoint. We don't need to mark an out point because the out point marker in the timeline will automatically determine the out point when we execute the edit. This is called a 3-point edit. Click the Video Only button so that we don't include the audio with this clip. Then click the Place on Top button in the toolbar. The clip was automatically placed in the V2 track, and because we placed in and out markers in the timeline, the clip's duration was constrained by these markers. Let's add one more cutaway. Press the up arrow until the playhead is parked at the beginning of the B camera clip, and press O to mark an out point. In the B-roll bin, double-click the squadron clip to load it into the viewer. Mark an endpoint at the beginning of the clip, and the out point before you see the large plane enter the frame in the lower left. We're about to perform a back-timed 3-point edit. It's called a back-timed edit because the marked out point of the source clip and the timeline will be aligned. Marking an endpoint in the timeline is unnecessary because it will be determined by the source clip's endpoint. Click the Place on Top edit and play back. Squadron of planes to check out the area, and in 1979 there was a major storm that revealed one of the planes. Let's break up the visuals by adding a close-up. Locate the water truck clip and move the playhead over the middle of the clip. In the toolbar, locate the close-up button and click it. The clip is added to the V2 track with a 200% zoom. If you're working with UHD media in an HD timeline, as we are with this clip, this is a super fast way to do a punch-in. To center the image, make sure your playhead is over the clip on V2. Then click the Tools button in the lower left of the viewer. Use the on-screen controls to reframe the image. When you're finished, close the Tools palette. Let's play that back. The Navy and let's add a transition. Play over the edit point between the rusty cruiser clip and the old building clip. Then pause playback. After watching the cut, you may think, hey, perhaps I'd like to add a cross dissolve to denote the passage of time. Before we add the transition, let's check our available media. Click once on the edit point. A green bracket appears over the outgoing edit point and a red bracket over the incoming edit point. The green indicates available media called handle frames, from which a transition can be created. The red indicates no available handle frames for the incoming clip. In order to add a transition, we need to create the additional handle media for the incoming clip. To do that, we'll perform a rolling trim edit. Drag the edit point to the right. Doing this will extend the outgoing clip's edit point while simultaneously shortening the incoming clip's edit point. For a 1-second transition, we'll need a minimum of 12 handle frames for the incoming clip. Watch the film strip until you see +12 reported on the left side of the edit point. Then release your mouse. You now have enough handle media to add a transition. To add the transition, your playhead does not need to be parked on the edit point. Only the nearest edit point, as determined by the Smart indicator. Locate the Dissolve button on the toolbar and click it. The transition is added. Let's play that back. In fact, let's add another cross dissolve. Move the playhead near the B-roll cutaway of the squadron clip and click the button again. It's really cool that you don't have to be precise about your playhead placement. Over time, it will save you a ton of clicks. The transition is a bit long for this short clip. Drag on the edge until the tooltip reports a new duration of 12 frames, or half a second. To replace the current transition with another one, open the transition panel to view all of Resolve's built-in transitions. To preview them, scrub your mouse pointer over each transition icon. I like this blur dissolve, but feel free to use another one, then drag and drop it onto the transition. To save a transition as a favorite, click the star to the right of the transition name. Move the playhead to the end of the plain 01 B-roll clip, then right-click on the Smooth Cut button to reveal your favorite transition. You can also select more than one transition to be a favorite. They will all appear in this menu. Just choose the one you want and it will be applied to the nearest edit point. Return to the media pool when you're done. To remove a transition, you don't actually need to select it. Just make sure the playhead is anywhere near the smart indicators. Then click the Cut button to remove it. Play back the first B-roll shot. This is a static shot, and perhaps we want to liven it up with some motion. Move the playhead to the start of the clip, then click the Tools button. Then the Dynamic Zoom button. Using the green and red overlays in the viewer, you set a start and end framing for the animation. The green rectangle represents the start frame, and the red rectangle the end frame. Reduce the size of the start frame, then position it over the old building. Let's play that back. To reverse the zoom direction, click this button. You can also add 3 different easing methods to the animation using these buttons. Let's add an ease out and play back. Now hide the tools. The cut page also has a really good stabilizer. Move the playhead over the Ford sedan clip. We shot this on a very windy day, and if you watch the clip, you'll see some camera shake. Re-enable tools and click the icon that looks like a camera shaking. Then click the Stabilize button. Play that back. The clip is more stable than it was, but we can do better. In the upper right corner of the UI, reveal the Inspector panel. This panel is context sensitive. When you have a clip selected, it will reveal some panels of options for improving the video, resizing your clips, changing audio levels, and so on. This Inspector panel is identical to the one you'll be using in the Edit page. The first thing to notice is this toggle that will allow you to turn the stabilization on or off. When disabled, the controls become unavailable. In this menu are 3 available stabilization options that determine how the selected clip is analyzed and transformed during stabilization. Perspective enables pan, tilt, zoom, and rotation, and should be your first choice. Use similarity when the perspective analysis results in unwanted motion artifacts. Translation enables pan and tilt stabilization only. To lock down the camera, click this button. Then click the Stabilize button. Play the clip back. It's now rock solid. We need to add an opening title for our teaser, but first we'll create a background for our title. Move the playhead near the start of the timeline. In the media pool, open the Music and Photos bin. Select the navy plain photo, then click the Smart Insert button. In the Tools section, select the Transform button, then use the on-screen controls to scale the photo to fit the frame. Click the Effects button in the upper toolbar to reveal a library of Resolve effects. Drag the Gaussian blur onto the photo. In the inspector, select the Effects panel, Drag on either the horizontal or vertical strength sliders to increase or decrease the amount of blur. To locate a title, click the Titles button in the upper toolbar. There are two types of titles: rich text titles under the Titles heading and Fusion titles. I cover these titles in great detail and the differences between them in Lesson 11. For now, we're going to work with a text title by dragging it over our photo in the V2 track. To edit the text, select the clip. Then in the text inspector, you'll see a plethora of text formatting and styling options. In the text input box, type out "in plain sight." Then choose a font, color, and text size. A drop shadow is already enabled, so you only need to drag inside the X and Y offset boxes to choose its placement relative to the text. And of course, you can change the amount of blur as well. You can also give your text a stroke and create a background using these controls, but you can play with these on your own. Close the inspector and the Tools palette when you're finished. I think it would be more interesting to hear the speaker start his intro while we're still on the opening title. Select both the photo and the title and drag up and over to create overlap with the first part of the interview clip. Let's play that back. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter. If you need to adjust the timing, you can ripple trim the gap clip to create more or less overlap. Let's trim back the title by a second, then add a cross dissolve. Move the playhead near the start of the photo and add another cross dissolve, and play back. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity. Great! Now let's turn our attention to the boring detector. Click the Timeline Options button, then select Boring Detector at the bottom of the menu. The way this feature works is that it uses an algorithm to analyze the length of your clips, then presents visual flags in the timeline depending on how you have it set up. So for example, let's say you wanted to know if there were clips that were longer than 2 seconds. You would enter that value, and any clip over that duration would be flagged in the timeline. The same is true for jump cuts. If you wanted to know if there are clips that are under 3 frames or 5 frames or whatever, you can set that as well. I'll set this for 10. Once you enter your values, click Analyze. In the timeline, the gray regions flag clips that are longer than 2 seconds. So for example, any clip with a gray bar indicates potentially boring shots per your criteria. So, assuming you agree with this, you can trim these boring shots as needed. Once trimmed past the 2-second threshold, the gray bar is removed. But what about clips that are so-called jump cuts? I'm going to deliberately shorten this clip to under 10 frames. Notice that when the clip hits my duration threshold, the so-called jump cut is flagged in red. So with this detector turned on, I can see that any clips shorter than 10 frames will be flagged in red, and any clips longer than 2 seconds will be flagged in gray. These boring flags are somewhat arbitrary and mildly useful if you're not focused on real storytelling. But the jump cut feature I do find useful. There are many times when you inadvertently have flash frames in your edit, which this feature will certainly catch. Turn it off by returning to the Options menu and deselecting it. Then press Command-Z or Control-Z on Windows a few times to undo those last 2 trims. To finish our teaser, we'll add a music track. Locate the Alien Chaos WAV file in the media pool. This clip was purchased from Pond 5, but the one you have to work with is watermarked. Before adding the music, make sure that the video-only toggle is turned off. Drag the music below the V1 track and align its left edge with the beginning of the timeline. Move the playhead to the end of the last clip. Select the music, then from the Edit Actions menu, choose Trim End to Playhead. You'll recall from the previous lesson that the tracks are collapsed by default. So if you want to see a larger waveform, you'll need to click the Enlarge Track button. Only one track can be enlarged at a time. Let's play back from the beginning to hear the music. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity. In fact, the music is too loud when the subject is speaking. With the music clip selected, move the playhead to the start of the first interview clip. Then using your keyboard, type -12 return to move the playhead back half a second. Open the audio inspector. Click the keyframe button next to volume to set a volume keyframe at the playhead location. Press the down arrow, then enter -10 in the volume input field. The waveform on the clip reacts to the change in volume. Play back from the beginning. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity. In fact, after playing back, I noticed that the audio output of the interview clip is not clean. From the Timeline Options menu, choose Trim to Audio. Ripple trim the end of the clip, and when you do, the clip is replaced with a giant waveform, allowing you to make precise adjustments. When you release the mouse, the clip reverts to collapse status. Before we output the movie, let's make some quick color corrections. Select the Rusty Cruiser clip, then reveal the tools. This shot has a flat look because it was shot with a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera using a log profile. To improve the contrast and color, click the Color Panel icon, then the Auto Color button. Instant color correction. Let's repeat that process for the next two B-roll clips. To remove an auto color correction, select the clip and click the Reset button. Or alternately, you can leave it on and disable the effect by clicking this toggle. Captioning your videos has become more important than ever. It makes your videos accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing communities, it ensures regulatory compliance for government and educational institutions, it enables comprehension in noisy public spaces, and allows for delivery in multiple languages to broaden your audience. Using Resolve's built-in machine learning, you can have Resolve analyze your audio, then generate a caption track for you automatically. This feature is only available in the studio version of Resolve 18.5 or later, but if you need to regularly generate captions, then it's a small price worth paying to upgrade, and you're about to see why. If you're following along in Resolve Studio 18.5 or later, go to the Actions menu and choose Create Subtitles from Audio. A window appears that allows you to choose a language and basic formatting. I'll leave these at their defaults and click Create. The audio is analyzed, and after a few moments, a subtitle track labeled ST1 is created with all the auto-generated captions placed exactly where they align with the audio in the timeline. Let's play back from the beginning of the timeline. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity.
Pond 5.
In fact, I would go so far as saying it is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest.
Pond 5.
The Navy in 1946 sent a squadron of planes to check out the area, and in 1979 there was a major storm that revealed one of the planes. And that plane has given us tons of clues as to what might have happened. That's some pretty incredible AI. Did you notice that not only was the spelling correct, but the machine learning even added proper punctuation and grammar? So for example, names were properly capitalized, and commas and periods were added. For the hearing impaired, the captions also include music and effects captions. Not too long ago, you had to pay a service to create these captions with this level of accuracy. But as good as machine learning is, it can still get some things wrong. So let's look at how to edit the captions. Let's look at adjusting the timing first. Move the playhead to roughly 22 seconds and play back. The Navy in 1946 sent a squadron of planes. These two captions need to be extended just a bit. I'll move the playhead to just after he says 1946. Navy in 1946. Then ripple trim the caption to the playhead. I'll repeat the process for the next caption. Sent a squadron of planes. Move the playhead over any caption and select it. Open the inspector. Under the heading Captions, you'll see a list of every caption in the timeline. Clicking a caption in the list selects it in the timeline. You can then use the text input field to edit the caption. There are two captions at line 4 and 8 that describe the music watermark. We don't need those, so Command-click to select them and press Delete. You can also change the look of your captions. Select the first caption, hold down the Shift key and select the last caption. Click the Customize Caption button, then reveal the caption style. I'll change the font, then the color. I want a nice bright yellow. I also want the captions lower in the frame, so I'll drag in the Y hot scrubber. To make this more accurate, I'll enable Title from the Safe Area menu. Click the button to turn off Title Safe when you're finished. Once your movie is finished, it's time to export it. One feature I find helpful is the ability to watch the movie full screen so I can see if there are any issues before I export and upload my movie. Just click the full screen button next to the inspector buttons. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity.
Pond 5.
In fact, I would go so far as saying it is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. Press Escape to exit full screen mode. When you're ready to export, click the Quick Export button to bring up a window where you can export directly to a variety of popular web destinations, including YouTube, Vimeo, and TikTok. All of these platforms will require you to sign in before you can upload. You'll only need to do this once for each platform. I want a local movie that I can send to my iPhone, so I'll choose H.264 Master, click Export, then save it to my system. Additionally, you can export a still frame from the video directly under the playhead. I'll move over to the main title because I want to use that frame as a YouTube thumbnail. From the File menu, choose Export. Current frame is still. Choose the image format at the bottom of the window, then click Export. In the next lesson, you'll learn how to configure project and user settings to give you the optimal experience when using Resolve.